Well, again, today we're going to learn about Lab 5, the Thermocouple lab. So you will need your new Whitstone bridge / thermocouple circuits that have been printed. You'll need 2 sets of the wires with the connectors. You'll need a thermocouple wire with one end already with a connector on it and the other end open to make your thermocouple. The screwdriver, your DAC, soldering iron, and there's only one spot welder, but we're going to use it all together, so everybody's going to come up at once, one person at a time and do it. So I'm going to show you how to use all 3 and to make your thermocouple. So the first thing to do to make your thermocouple is you're going to take your wire and strip both ends so you can see the bare wire. And I'm going to show you how to solder one first really quickly if you don't know how to solder. You're going to plug in your soldering iron, let it heat up for about 5-10 minutes, and you're going to test to see if it's hot enough. And you're going to do that by taking the tip of your soldering iron and put some solder on it, and you can see how it kind of made a little bit of smoke there, so I know it's hot enough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take one end and I'm going to put the tips as close together as possible, and then I'm going to take my solder and I'm going to use my wire clippers to kind of hold my thermocouple wire up so that I can solder it. Now I'm going to take my soldering iron and place it on one side of the thermocouple tips where I'm going to place my thermocouple, and I'm just going to try and solder a bead around it and make it as small as possible, but yet still connecting them. So you can see right here, that's a pretty good bead. It's kind of small but not too big. When you're making these thermocouples, you don't want to put a big blob of solder on there because then you're not going to be able to see the response in a very good amount of time. So that's how you're going to use a soldering iron. Once you're done, you're going to want to turn the soldering iron off, and that's how you use the soldering iron with thermocouples. So you have 2 types of options for this. You have a solder and spot weld. Each group has to produce 3 thermocouples. One of each of those must be solder, one must be spot weld. And then after those 2, you can choose again to use a solder or a spot weld on top of it. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the same piece of wire, you're going to do all the experiments you need to do, and you're going to clip off the top, the tip of it, and you're going to make the next thermocouple on the same wire. This way we're not wasting a bunch of wire and having to buy it all the time. So I'm going to show you how to use the spot welder right now. The TA in your class will also go over this in class, and this lab you must have safety goggles on. This is the must for this lab, especially with a spot welder. So again, you're going to put your tips together. You're going to plug in your spot welder. You're going to turn this knob right here to about halfway between this 10 and the 20, somewhere in there. That's a good range. You have your block and your pliers, and my 2 thermocouple tips are close together. And when you press it down onto the block, you want to make sure the tips are really close together. And then you're going to, while holding it there, you're going to press that button like I said before, so go ahead and look away. And then you press it, and it should make the tips come together. So when you're doing this, make sure your wire is long enough so that the wire is touching the pliers, because there has to be a connection between the thermocouple wire, this block, and the pliers in order for a connection to be made. So when you get it correct, you'll see that there's a little bead connecting it together right in there. Now it's very, very fragile, so you don't want to try and pull it apart. But if your thermocouple is not responding, then you're going to want to pull it apart and try it again. So what you could always do is put it back on, go back to it, and then make a thicker bead by doing it again. Now you may also blow it apart in the process. So I got it pretty close to 10, so you're going to want to use about 10 on this little dial. So after you're done with the spot welder, you go ahead and turn it off. Then you take your thermocouple to your circuit here. How to hook up this. The way you're going to hook it up is you're going to look at it like you have been before. This left pin on the top and bottom are the positive outputs and inputs. So your input goes here, your output's here, and you connect your thermocouple here. And this pin and this pin are the pins where the positive outputs are. Now when you hook your thermocouple in, it's non-inverting circuit, so you have to make sure you're putting in positive voltage. So when you connect your thermocouple and you don't get a response, you'll have to flip your thermocouple to make sure you get a response on the circuit. So first things first, you're going to use the same 5-volt out from the DAQ as before. So I'm going to take one red wire, and I'm going to hook that to the 5-volt positive on the digital side of the DAQ, and I'm going to take my white one and hook it to the ground port on my DAQ. And I'll use my screwdriver to put that in. Alright, then we're going to use the AI0 port again. The red one's going to be our positive and the white one's going to be our negative for the AI0 port. I'm just going to connect those as well. Then you're just going to push them on like you did for the Whetstone Bridge Lab. So this is my power in, so I'm going to push it on like so, with the red being on the left. Then this is my power out, or my output, and again I'm going to put the red on the left since I made that the positive. And then to use the thermocouple, all I'm going to do is just push it on, and then you're going to run your VI, and when you made a thermocouple, you're going to run your VI, put your finger on it and run it to see if you get a change in voltage, to see if you have an initial voltage at room temperature and then a change. If you don't, then what you do is you just pull it off and flip it. And then you should get a voltage. Now keep in mind the voltage you should be getting should be around 0.01. It's about the voltage you should be getting out of this. And keep in mind that you have to make one spot weld and at least one solder. The only thing that you're going to have to worry about this time in LabVIEW, I'm not going to make a video on LabVIEW this week since you pretty much know everything you need to know. This week you're going to only want to be concerned with the timeout, of the DAC. If you try and take data more than 10 seconds, which is the default time for the DAQ to timeout, then it's going to give you an error. So just create a control for your timeout seconds in DAQ, and then you should make sure it's longer than how long you want to create data for. And that's everything you're going to need to know for this week. So that's how you set everything up for Lab 5, and that's it.